IVM.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Shnuya One. This is our 101st episode. It's been a long time coming. Thank you for sticking around. Today we have a conversation with Christopher Engman. This is the first in the series of conversations with Swedish entrepreneurs that Shiladitya has been having. Christopher is the CRO/CMO of Proof Analytics, which is a really interesting marketing analytics tool. It should be a really interesting conversation. Also joining in on this episode is Harshil. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. Give it a listen.
Welcome to the show, Christopher and Harshil. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thank you so much.
Good. Yes, thank you for making it. I know, this is one of those rare opportunities to have someone like you who's visiting us in Bombay also record with us while you're here. And of course, you're from Stockholm. You're from over here.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some interesting perspectives on both the Indo-Sweden connections, as well as what you guys have been doing at Proof Analytics, and we'll get into that. But to give us some background, Christopher, why don't you give us a little bit of history on what you've been doing personally, and of course how the story of Proof Analytics today fits in.
Right. So I'm born in the north of Sweden, close to the polar circle, and already at fourth degree, I started entrepreneurship. So I've gone into that really early. And so in the early days, my parents had to sign power of attorneys to allow me to do it. But it was real companies, but mostly for fun in the early days. But then I've been kind of playing around with companies all the time. I still got through. I mean, I did university and all of that. And I also managed to play a lot of football in Sweden, Italy, France, etc. But I've always been a bit of a study nerd anyway. So those early companies were just for fun, just playing entrepreneurship, kind of. Mm-hmm. And then after university, I did work 1 year as a consultant. I don't know, that was maybe just a motive or like to cover something that people said, yeah, you need to work some first. So I did work a year, but then I immediately went back to entrepreneurship to start my first real company that was doing and is doing digital vouchers and coupons, etc. So we were the first in the world, and this is maybe weird to hear, but now it's kind of used everywhere. We were the first in the world using barcodes in the screen of the phone.
Oh.
And we also had patents around using various radio technologies to transfer the IMEI code from the phone as a proxy to use instead of loyalty cards and tickets.
Wow.
But we failed that company early, but we restarted it, and then it went well. And the reason why we failed was that I was a really bad entrepreneur. So I learned some really tough lessons, and one of them is something I gladly share. It's around prestige. So I was very driven by prestige in my early years, very competitive and very hunting for the prestige, like the external prestige. And that didn't take me to good places. So when I failed my first company, one of the things I recoded was to, instead of hunting prestige, I wanted to put learning fast before the prestige. So in any kind of situations where you have to choose, so if you will say something today that I don't understand, I will say, I don't understand, instead of saying, yeah, I totally know what you mean. So if the thing is, if you learn only a few % faster than the rest per year, so I made the calculation. This might be incorrect. I think I remember the calculation. But if you grow intellectually 2% faster than the rest per year, and you do that over 20 years, you're actually 63% smarter after 20 years. So
wow,
it's kind of compound interest.
Compound
exactly, interest.
Yeah.
So
power of compounding even knowledge.
Yeah, power of compound knowledge. So if you focus on every situation you have, you say, okay, put the prestige to the side. Instead, okay, I don't understand this. Raise your hand. Yeah, for the moment you look a bit stupid. But the next time that situation occurs, you know it already.
Yeah.
So the compound interest is more important than this short-term cash withdrawal, right?
Nice.
It's actually a good analogy. So you have the cash withdrawal, or you put in the interest rate. So that was my biggest learning, and it affected my value system a lot. So I think so after that, I became very much more successful successful in entrepreneurship and in life in general. I also got a more kind of likable personality, like still competitive, but in any kind of situation where these two are fighting, so will the prestige win or the learning fast? I intentionally go, okay, no, shove it down, the goddamn prestige, and focus on the learning here. So that's something. And also I learned a lot about focus. I was kind of doing too many things, trying to do too many countries, too many things. So to really focus was a big learning. And also something from a leadership perspective, in the early days, I always came with the answer. So I could be in a trip like this to India. I come back to the office and I say, okay, now I have it. And I went to the whiteboard and I draw the solution. And then I said to everyone, so now go do it. That doesn't work.
No.
I don't know. It doesn't work here either, I guess. So I basically learned okay, the collective knowledge is more important than your knowledge. So instead of coming back with the answer, you can come back with an embryo. But instead of explaining the whole story, give the embryo and let the group develop it. Because it will not only be anchored, it will be better.
Yeah.
So the collective brain is smarter than one brain.
Yeah, and the power of more data, right?
Yeah, exactly. More data. Exactly.
Yeah.
You have people with different backgrounds, different knowledge, different databases in their head, basically.
Yeah.
So those are a few things. So anyway, so then I started a few companies after that. So taxi system that was then sold to. It was a bit like Uber, but the software part of it. So we sold that to medium-sized and large taxi companies in a few European countries. We then sold a company to a group that is in the Northern Europe, the absolute biggest taxi group. They bought the whole system. So they use it now when they grow.
Oh, nice.
So, and then I was part of creating a company called Vendemore. So we were the first in the world doing IP targeted advertising. So under the umbrella of account-based marketing. So we were the first company in the world doing that. And we did that for 10 years. We had over 100 Fortune 500 companies. TCS was actually one of our better clients. Oh. So Tata Consulting Services. We tried to get various other parts of the Tata Group, but they were kind of the crown jewel. And
Amit
Amit Bhai, the European CEO, he's nowadays he's a good friend of mine. And Tata TCS in Europe has grown from 100 people to 50,000 people only in Europe.
Yeah.
So that was a good journey. And then I sold that company to like the European version of Dun & Bradstreet, like a big data company. And that was kind of creating my first, let's call it fund. So then I've used that money to invest in predominantly two categories. So marketing technology, which is 8 different companies. And then cleantech. So basically green energy technologies. And I've also used the knowledge gained during these journeys and started and done a few years of research on multi-billion-dollar deals. So I'm pretty heavy and into B2B. And I'm a bit like a truth seeker.
Yeah, and you've written a book as well.
Yeah, so that led to, in the beginning, it was just a presentation material that came out of workshops with these over 100 Fortune 500 companies. And because I saw patterns that they did in their sales and marketing that I didn't see in the literature.
Yeah.
And then I asked them, so what kind of literature do you study? They said, well, there is none.
Yeah.
So the kind of deals we're doing is not documented.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is a blue ocean.
Yeah.
So that created the embryo of a big research with over, so we engaged a team of over 100 people around the world. India, China, Singapore, North America, basically everywhere, and have studied multi-billion-dollar deals and figure out what they do and written it down in this book.
Wow.
As a recipe.
Wow. For
big deals. And it's people think, it's only for people that do multi-billion-dollar deals. No. The cool thing when you study multi-billion-dollar deals is that the people involved are really smart. It's a bit like studying Nadal in tennis or Federer or Djokovic. You don't study us 2 or us 3 playing tennis. because we're shit. So you don't want to model us three.
Yeah.
So you want to model the best. And in sales and marketing on the B2B side, you find a lot of the smartest people around the really large deals.
Yeah.
So if you get to model them, then those methods can be used also for normal kind of B2B deals. So what people say about the book is that it's really applicable for them, even though they do kind of maybe a few $100,000 deals.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not $10,000 deals, but kind of medium-sized.
Yeah. No, I look forward to reading it. And again, we're in the business of sales and marketing and analytics and data. I think you realize that while you have so much data around you to learn from, it's these experiences of others which actually teach you a lot more.
Yeah. And also it's like the layer which I'm exploring now most of the time, and also together with Harshil here in India, is to use regression modeling to figure out what's working and not in sales or marketing. And now it's not restricted to B2B, so it's even more B2C. It's B2C and B2B, medium-sized and large corporations. So we had some amazing meetings today here in Mumbai, and we'll have the same for coming few days. Oh. And what we've figured out and is doing with some global brands already is that so what many people do, they try to figure out what's working and not by mapping the customer journey online, which is great for some tactical decisions. It's not working for trying to determine where to spend your marketing money, because you're missing out anything that's offline.
Yeah.
You're also, even though it's online, you're missing out things that have a delayed effect. Like you remember the Volvo Epic Split. You remember that one with Van Damme? Yeah. That example is a great branding piece.
Yeah. But you don't know how it
translates. No, but you don't know how to translate that into money.
Truck sales, yeah.
So, but by applying regression analytics, you can use. You don't track the click behaviors. You're instead looking at how they're spending their money, and you correlate that to revenue and profit over time, over many years. So all of a sudden you start to see, for example, Facebook retargeting could have a multiplicator effect of 17, like a multiplier of 17. So 1 rupee in is 17 rupees out. It also tells you what's the average time to impact. So when has those 17 rupees
been realized,
or half of it? So we look at the middle point. So when is 8.5 rupees been materialized? It could be one day, it could be 5 quarters.
Yeah.
It's very different. We also tell you what's the standard deviation on each marketing investment. Like if you put 1 rupee in on Facebook retargeting, it has 17 rupees back. If the standard deviation is high, it fluctuates a lot from rupee to rupee. If it's low, it's almost 17 all the time. And these data, these outputs are all of a sudden making marketing like an investment portfolio.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden marketing is talking financial language.
Yeah.
So we're doing this with companies like Intel, Oracle, United Technologies, etc. And it's born out of Honeywell and HP, companies like that.
Wow. In fact, before we go deeper into proof analytics, and of course, Harshil, I want to also understand the India perspective of this, right? I think as a country, we are also getting more and more aware of how to use data better, we're such a massive user base. We're all our apps are, the successful ones hit like millions of numbers so easily, and it makes it looks like it's so easy to do, right? But and there's so much VC money here. There's so much,
there is.
There's so much capital.
India is a vibrant market.
Yeah, capital being put behind people's ideas and startups. So where to best use it, I think, is a question a lot of these companies are asking, right? But given your background, which you just told us about how you've done these bunch of companies, you've done deals as well in this scale. How did that lead to you? Why do you think this domain of trying to build out, let's say, ROI on where to spend marketing? Is this something you see a lot of large companies asking for today? Like, is this the marketing used to be like a spend area which they had to do?
So marketing and HR are kind of the two last islands of fluff. Right.
Yes, where people don't know how exactly it works.
Yeah, exactly.
What sticks?
And it's not the fault of the marketeers or the HR people. It's just that both those domains have a lot of things that are hard to quantify. It's really hard, and because it consists of many variables, like many marketing budgets consist of 37, 47, 53 different variables that they spend money on. Mm-hmm. It's also having different delayed effects. And science is showing that the human race can only handle 4 variables. So when you have 37 in your marketing mix, your brain can't handle it. And especially when they have different delayed effects. They're just too, and it's not the fault of each person. It's the human race that just can't do it. We're good at associating. We're good at memory. We're good at emotions and stuff, especially. Yeah. The human brain is good at certain things. That's why, for example, when you look at these thinking like these robots, they completely destroy us on chess and stuff.
Yeah.
But they don't destroy us on when to associate things.
Yeah.
They're not good at associating.
Yeah.
But multiple variables for a computer, it kills it.
Yeah, it's so easy, yeah.
Yeah. So multiple dimensions of numbers is simple for a computer. So this is why it's all of a sudden possible. And we're the first company in the world that have automated this. Mm-hmm. In the past, this has been based on big PhD teams that are really expensive. They're working day and night, and still it takes many, many weeks, sometimes months, well, often months, to produce the results. And so I'll give you an example. We're working on getting a client now where they sell in 170 countries. They do what's called marketing mix modeling, which is regression analytics on marketing, in 7 out of 170 countries, once or twice per year. That's what the internal team can handle.
Wow.
Because it doesn't scale. It's so hard work, so tricky, so time consuming. So we've automated that. So our modeling takes 2 minutes.
Wow. That's a lot of computing power.
But what's interesting is also that I think what's fantastic about this is that regression and econometrics and this modeling, this multivariate regression is not a new concept.
Yeah.
So it's an age-old concept, so you're bringing age-old to just making it more efficient using computers. To reduce the redundancy on time taken to build out the model, and which is what Proof does, which is basically automate the model, right? Automate the regression model, so the finer stuff can be done by the PhDs,
right? And
not the drudgery can be done. The drudgery,
the heavy lifting is done by the machine.
By the machine, yeah. Which is why it makes sense. And the other thing is that also in the marketing business, there's very few people in the marketing business who see all the marketing data in one data set.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're always looking at different marketing data, different marketing sets,
silos of data,
and silos, and then you're trying to say that hey, actually this relates to this, but like Christopher said, it's maybe you've got 60 sets of data, and you're just not able to create those correlations fast enough. Yeah. That's what's interesting about Proof.
Yeah.
And this world of marketing and advertising is all, they say the madmen and the mathmen, but all the mathmen have been doing is basically negotiating better deals. So, now this is real mathmen, I think, coming in.
And the interest for me, Proof is kind of the epicenter of my whole career. So I started off after school doing regression modeling for the Swedish government, reducing the error of capital gain tax forecasting from 80% to 4%. I didn't understand, and I did it together with Magnus, who's head of analytics at Proof, and we didn't know the capital gain tax domain. And this is prior to Google, so we had to Alta Vista it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had to Alta Vista what is capital gain tax. And then once we figured out, we could use mathematical skills, but it took us 6 months to do it. Mm-hmm. We reduced the error by a mile, but it took us 6 months. And it's the same thing. So we're reducing a work that is several months, we bring it down to minutes. And one thing that I thought would happen was that I actually thought that the teams of PhDs would feel threatened by us, that we kind of take their job in a way. Mm-hmm. But it's not at all what happens. So these guys are overworked. They're a scarce resource in these big organizations. So they're overworked. And it's a bit like some super smart programmer. They're not always understood by the C-suite. So they go like, why on earth are you not doing these models faster? Yeah. They're like, but it takes this long time. And people that don't understand regression model, they don't get it. So these guys feel misunderstood. They're working their ass off, and they don't get a lot of credit. So once we come in, and what takes a lot of time when you do modeling is to test which variables are significant.
Yeah.
So let's say you're spending money on 67 things. The first thing we do is to figure out, of these 67, which of them are significant? I mean, have an effect that we can prove. And normally, when you do this manually, you have to add variables, test it, take one out, test it again, take one out, test it again. It's an immense amount of work. But this part is automated, so that's why it's so fast all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And
you also have a very fast-changing world where variables keep getting added.
Yeah.
So if you built a model out and then you add one more variable, then all of a sudden you have to tweak the whole model.
Right.
Which is why people are not able to use regression consistently month on month, or so far at least. But if you automate the model, then you can actually bring proof to what you're saying, makes a change, and then continue using that to get the money to perform better.
Yeah. And even the cool thing is that even these teams or PhDs, what really bugs them is that long time of shit work.
Yeah.
So they want to be doing the smart analytics on top of that. And that's what we bring. But that was a good surprise to me, because I thought we would get a lot of pushback. I thought we would have to focus entirely on the small and medium-sized companies. But we're really welcomed, even by the ones that have those teams in place, because those teams are not getting the love and caring and appreciation that they deserve, and they can't scale.
Yeah. And I totally get this. I mean, I work with a few data science folks, and they're the most protected of resources because they are scarce, like you said.
Yeah.
How many 2,300 PhDs with?
So if you go into LinkedIn, there are 2,300 people with marketing mix modeling their profile, and about 2/3 of them have PhD or higher in their academic degree. So the population that can do the kind of mathematics needed is very limited.
Yeah. Exactly, and I've seen the example I was seeing, what you just said in real life. I've seen, one of our guys hanging out and just sitting back in his chair and looking at the screen. And I walk up and say, "Hey, what's happening? Like, you think about something?" He's like, "No, I'm waiting for the model to run, to finish running." He's like, "I just gotta wait this out. That's what my job is right now." Yeah. So. Of course, and that's where machines and AI and all of this computing power that we have in the world today obviously accelerates this, right? But again, applying it to this field of marketing, which is very interesting, right? Because like you said, it's one of those areas where people still, they don't know what's working.
Right, exactly.
Right?
And to your audience, I mean, you have a lot of entrepreneurs in your audience. So we're big in the big media spenders, but we're also big among the fast growers, because once you get, for example, VC funding or private equity funding, we have a case now where we're brought in by the PE firm, because if they put in $50 million into a case, they want to be bloody sure it grows.
Yeah. So
they put us in place to control the maximum growth of their money.
Yeah. So that it gets used in the right place.
Yeah. So if you're a high growth company, you cannot afford to miss 2 years. Yeah. It's devastating. Your share price can plummet. So we're used by the big names, but also by the high growth cases.
Yeah.
Those are kind of our two markets.
That's very interesting.
On that note, I think we're going to take a quick break, come back and talk some more.
Hey everybody, you know what we've got? We've got another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So if you haven't been following us on YouTube, please do a search for IVM CCTV and get a peek inside what's going on in the studio. You can see excerpts from Cyrus Says, Naveen from Keeping It Queer, Akash from Varta Lab. There's stuff that we've done with Feeding 10 Billion. There are a whole bunch of little videos over there. Give it a watch and let us know what you think about that. This week on Cyrus Says, it's a podcast crossover as hosts of our new show, GBCD Farhad Karkaria and Sunitra Lairi join Cyrus to talk about the meaning of being queer, how to define labels, and how their podcast came about. Also, speaking of GBCD, Farhad and Sunitra in their show delve into the family stories and recalling what it was like to navigate queerness as a kid. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam is joined by two guests, Ankur Chaudhary and Swapnil Bhaskar. They're the co-founders at Goldwise. They discuss the new features at Goldwise and transitioning from regular to direct mutual funds. On Golgappa, Trupti is joined by Mahesh Ane, award-winning cinematographer who is known for his work on Swades. He talks about the ups and downs that he encountered along the way in the film industry. On Ganatantra, Alok and Saryu are joined by Smitana Saikia of Flame University, Pune to talk about the history and impact of the NRC list and how it has caused marginalization in the Northeast. On another crossover, this time on What a Player, Mikhail and Siddhartha are joined by Sivram Parmeswaran, the host of the podcast Football Shutball. They talk about the thrill of watching football and following a club. On Mr. and Mrs. Binge Watch, Janice and Anirudh look back at the best and worst moments of the 2019 Emmy Awards. On Advertising is Dead, Varun is joined by singer-songwriter Ankur Tiwari, who talks about how artists find new forms of expression and monetize their work. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
All right, welcome back. How's the market looking in India for a product like this?
Very good.
And what's the Swedish India connection that you see, which you guys have taken advantage of, maybe?
I don't know. One thing that I feel, even though you could claim that we have very different cultures, but I feel a lot of equal part in the cultures. Mm-hmm. I mean, we look different. We should be very different, but we're not. I don't know. It's kind of so a Swedish person is a mix. So a Japanese person, they're very maybe a bit
focused and
sometimes shy and a bit
reserved.
Reserved. Yeah. Thank you. Reserved. So a Swede is kind of a mix between a Japanese and an American.
Who are extroverts.
Yeah. And I sense the same here. And you have also something that is common to the Swedish culture. You have this kind of still a bit aggressive, but very calm in a way.
So they have an interesting concept which I learned with his people. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly. Lagom.
Yeah, lagom.
So this not too little, not too much.
Yeah, just
this
right.
Idea of the balance.
Yeah, it's just right.
Which is what he's saying is what we are.
Yeah.
Also a little bit. You know.
Like when we first met Harshil, there was. I mean, you have 300 employees, which is amazing, but we also sat down with people that have 8,000 employees, and I remember this guy said, "Yeah, we're a small company and we're trying to grow, and we're working on this and that." And then I said, "So how many people are you?" Like, "Yeah, we're only 8,000." I'm like, "You're only 8,000."
Yeah,
that's pretty big.
Scales are shifted.
Yeah, and he's like, "No, but Tata is 760,000 people." I'm like, but that's that's second after Siemens, I think, is the biggest in the world, or maybe after IBM, I can't remember, but one of those, the second largest in the world. So it's not.
That's Rusha Bora, who runs Silla, facilities management company.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were on the same table together.
Yeah.
And so we were basically brought together by this group called Founders Alliance, which is a group that runs uniting all the big large-scale Swedish founders.
Yeah.
And they came over to Bombay, and there were a bunch of...
And Delhi,
Bombay and Delhi. And, we met at the Bombay event, which is a bunch of Indian founders along with a bunch of Swedish founders. And we were basically put on the table exchanging learnings. And that's when Rushabh said. Rushabh also said you should always give the bad news on a Friday. Fire them on Friday. Yeah. And, the other thing he said, hire slowly, fire quickly.
Yeah.
So they were doing this kind of stuff. And
he was a smart guy.
Yeah,
he's a smart guy. Yeah. But it's just this kind of. So maybe an American would say, "Yeah, we're 30 people. We're like giants."
Yeah.
This Indian entrepreneur is saying, "Yeah, we're only 8,000 people.
And
we're trying to grow to become big." You're like, "What are you talking about? 8,000 is pretty large." But anyways,
our sense of scale is shifted, like I said, because of our population. I think. No, and I mean, growing up, it's like whatever you do is never enough.
Yeah.
So 8,000 people.
He was like almost embarrassed. Like, no, we're so small. Like. So I thought he would say like 50 people or something. Yeah. So he's like, no, we're only 8,000 people. Right.
It's changing in some cultures, though. I think now the new age startups we think like, 100 people, we're too big.
Yeah.
We need to be a tighter team.
You have things in your culture which are similar to Sweden. So I've lived in 5 countries. So I love all the places I've been to, but I can also see some similarities. So I think there are more similarities between India and Sweden than it is between Sweden and Italy, for example.
Oh,
so I mean, you're kind of more passionate and emotional than the average Swede, but you're kind of calm like the average Swede. Whereas when I go to Italy, they're not calm.
Yeah.
So in the traffic, they're crazy. I just noticed today, I mean, we're driving for an hour, the traffic isn't moving, but people are calm.
Yeah.
They're just relaxed and,
Yeah, we're used to it.
Yeah, and if you go into, like we spoke about earlier today, you go into the favelas in Rio de Janeiro, you feel the aggressive level there. Whereas here, you go into some really poor neighborhood, it's still very peaceful.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, we're
And
not
I think
But
intimidated.
there's still a lot to learn from each other. So I think the part that we have to learn from them is the analytical nature of everything, and how when everything is built to last, and how you sort of
Data-driven
test everything,
decisions. Yeah.
data-driven decision. You build to last forever.
Yeah, Sweden and Germany are quite similar there.
Yeah, so I think that is what's attractive about us, to be able to learn from there, and if we're able to create that blend, it would be very interesting. The interesting conversation I had with Christopher when I went to see him was he says that he uses, when he's making decisions, he makes the decision one after the other. So he makes an analytical decision. So he goes through all the data in his head, and then he uses the emotion as a veto card. So if the data is making sense, but it doesn't sit right in his stomach, then that's the veto card. Whereas we do fits right in the stomach, and then we'll make the data work around it. So, so we...
No, that has really... So actually, going back in history, so with my company that kind of failed, that we restarted, that was another learning. So I've always been pretty good at mathematics, hence proof, hence the government work and all of that. Not that I was particularly fond of it. That's why I went into marketing and sales and entrepreneurship. But I have a good talent for mathematics. So Magnus, our head of analytics, he's calling me...
Megatron.
Yeah, we call him Megatron because he's so good, like from Transformers. Yeah. But he's also calling me the biggest waste of talent.
Wow. Because you do marketing and sales, is it?
Yeah, I'm a traitor going into marketing and sales. So I'm lost from the mathematical science world. Anyway, but one thing I learned after my first failure, when I went back in time, I realized that some of the bad decisions I made actually didn't feel right. Logically, they were right. Didn't feel right. So I was like, okay, I can see a pattern here. I made bad decision here, bad decision here, bad decision there, bad decision. I didn't have enough data points to prove it statistically. But I had a series of events where afterwards I felt like that didn't feel good. And I still did it because it logically made sense. So to Harshil's point, so now I still use my analytical skill and this methodological approach to decision making, but I use my gut feeling as the veto card. So if it doesn't sit well, like you said, I don't do it. And I don't even need to seek the answer. I just go, okay, it doesn't feel well, I don't do it. I don't dig deeper into it. I just exit.
Yeah, because looking for data there would be...
No, that's too tricky.
Yeah.
There's no proof.
Like,
There's no
I mean,
proof.
we can dwell into that, but the gut feeling is a huge amount of data.
Yes.
You just can't put your finger on it. So that's why you should listen to it, but you should kind of blend it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting take, and that's again, someday maybe we'll be able to quantify that when machines catch up
Exactly.
with how to judge emotions better.
We can put that into our regression models.
Yeah, someday.
No, I'm actually but I can put an extreme on what Harshil said. So I think this is actually about lagom, the balance. So Swedes in bigger corporations have taken this too far. The quantitative logical approach. So in big corporations, I often meet decisions that are really weird from an emotional point of view. They just, but this is the logical right way. But you're pissing off 30% of the staff. You're creating this weird thing in media. Yeah, but it's still the logical right thing. Yeah, but it doesn't sit right in the stomach. So you need to have your GPS on, your emotional GPS, while looking at things logically. And I think this is so basically, maybe you, Harshil, said that you in India need to learn more from this logical approach. I think that the average Swedish corporate employee is listening way too little to the instinct. This is way too logical.
Yeah.
That's not right either.
That's, I think, where we have still a lot to learn from each other, I guess. In how to do this.
I think the beauty when you meet a lot of cultures, you should really pick the best from various places.
Of course. In fact, brings me to one of the other points I read about that you've been doing, and you also mentioned it, that you're investing in cleantech.
Yeah.
Again, a very interesting side of different from marketing analytics and everything else that we just spoke about. But what's and of course as serious as anything else, right, in the world today. So could you tell us a bit about why you chose to do that and what's your thesis on investing?
So I give you first the knowledge angle. So the thing is that the whole green tech or clean tech, whatever you want to call it, that industry is very engineering driven. So I did go into a company called ClimbOn for 2 years as the biggest non-institutional investor, but also as a head of sales and marketing. First of all, because I had this knowledge later that I saw them lacking, but I also felt like, but you can see this here. So we drove by this river today that's
over.
It's
dirty.
Dirty.
Yeah.
It's black.
Yeah.
Meaty river.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, there is a serious urgency around not just climate change, but also pollution.
Yeah.
So we seriously need to do quite a few things there. And I actually believe, I don't know if you follow, is Greta exposed here? The Swedish girl, she's, I don't know, 15 or something. Anyway, she's been speaking in front of the UN. So she's...
yes. On videos.
Yeah. Anyway, so
not by name, by face.
She's saying that it's not a climate change problem, it's a climate change crisis.
Yes.
And I actually think she's right. So it is going super fast. I think people that can't see that are deniers. And that's which is a physical phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's like if you smoke, you kind of deny the fact that it's correlating with cancer.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a mental
blockage. Anyway, to put that, so one of the big drivers is that is a big issue, and I think it's fun and needed to use your skills and money to make changes that are important. But it's all coming from the knowledge around larger deals and how you combine sales and marketing. So the thing is, I'm involved in 12 companies, and some people ask me, so how is that possible? Like I spend most of my time in proof, but I'm still involved on board levels and workshops and stuff in other companies. How is that possible? But the thing is, I only use the same skill set.
Yeah.
I only repeat and adjust the knowledge around combining sales and marketing for larger deals. That's what I do. That's the only thing I do. Yeah. So I basically come into a meeting. I adapt it to your company, but I use a recipe. And I twist and turn it. So that makes my time scalable. And return on time is a good KPI.
Of course.
But anyway, so the two clean tech companies I'm involved in, one was ClimbOn, where I came in big and ran sales and marketing for 2 years. And we went from $3 to $90 million in contracting in just 2 years, which is like 3,000% growth. We also got a 10-time oversubscription on the NASDAQ when we went into the stock market, and got Bill Gates and Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, and some of those guys as investors in our finance company.
Wow.
So that's becoming a bit of, I think it's one of the coming unicorns. It's not there yet, but it's a really promising case. So it's converting hot water into electricity.
Oh.
And hot water around 100 degrees. And it has almost double efficiency to the second competitor in the world, based on a few technical innovations. So it's running this process in a vacuum, which is a big deal. Anyway, we don't have to go deep into that, but then that's applied to steel plants, cement plants, geothermal heat from the ground, wherever you find hot water. The big case, obviously, geothermal heat from the ground.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's
steam
huge
vents and everything.
Yeah, that's a huge case. And the second case is a battery case. So energy storage is a big deal.
Yeah.
And in Germany, for example, which is a quite advanced market, they throw away 18% of the wind energy because it's overproduction certain times of day and certain times of the week. So they throw it out on the railway to kind of create heat from it, and they throw it into resistors that create heat. So you have to put it somewhere. Mm-hmm. But steel mines or iron mines are there are more and more of them that are unused. So they've already tapped out the iron.
And there's just holes in the ground.
Yeah, holes in the ground. No one is touching it. And if you take the superfluo of that electricity that is normally wasted, and instead you pump up water. So if you have the mine, it's a shaft and it's the tunnels. So you fill the tunnels with water and you pump up the water when you have too much electricity, and you drop it down through turbines when you have too little electricity. So all of a sudden you've created a battery underground, which is investable. It's no chemicals, nothing weird, and it's way cheaper than lithium ion and those kind of batteries. So it's and I'm lead investor in that case.
Wow!
So that's a second clean tech.
It's like a natural battery.
Yeah, and it's invisible, silent.
Yeah,
is using a resource that is already invested in, and it's now just there, not used. Yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah, and that's if you take for example, nuclear power. So nuclear power is quite expensive.
Yeah.
Most people don't know that. They think it's cheap, but it's quite expensive. So even if you store half of the wind energy in this mine battery, it's still cheaper than nuclear power. So already now, when doing those combinations, it's cheaper than the old sources.
Interesting.
Which is pretty cool. So
that's
I think
that's some very cool innovation you just spoke about right there.
Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't invent it. I'm the lead investor, but it was created by some really smart Swedish guys. But I think, so anyways, so I'm into green energy, and which is something I will increase. I'm also into 8 different marketing technology companies,
right.
Proof being the biggest, and all of them are great, but Proof is basically, to be honest, a revolution. It's kind of changing the game entirely, which is, we noticed that in the meetings. It's kind of, we had 5 meetings today. 4 are saying, okay, we want to go ahead. Not necessarily buy, but want to go deeper, want to take next step.
Yeah.
And 1 was maybe less relevant. But the kind of hit rate.
It makes sense, right? Yeah. This is the world we live in now. We have so much data. We have so many things to do, to run. Yeah. Everyone has to run their company, grow their company. They have to spend money now, especially, like I said, the capital-rich sort of companies need to deploy that. Yeah. And they need to know where they can get the most effectiveness. Very broadly speaking, of course, that's what it is.
And what's good now from a maturity point of view, many companies, like several of the ones we met today, now they got their data in order.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect, but they have, if you compare this to 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was all broken up.
It was a mess. And so what they've done over the last 5 to 10 years, they spent a lot of energy making them, going from offline to a blend of offline online.
Digital transformation.
So now they're omni-channel. Yeah. So especially the more advanced brands are omni-channel. Yeah. And they got the data. They don't have the computational power to allocate it smarter, which is where we come in. So the timing, I think I've never been in a case where the timing is so good as with Proof Analytics. I've never seen a case with that timing. It's just crazy good timing.
Yeah, and again, India is a hotbed for
a
lot of data and a lot of optimization.
And it's also good. So India is so large that the global, so the Indian branches of global brands are so substantial that we can start here.
Yeah, they'll take it seriously.
Yeah,
the other thing with Proof is, most of the customers are B2B customers at this point in time. And, Christopher talks about him being in B2B sales and his colleagues being in B2B sales. So they build Proof and they call their friends up saying that, hey, we need to test this. And that's where they have 31 large-scale customers, United Technologies, Intel, Oracle, all those big guys using Proof. And now you have the biggest CPG guys building it out of India. Large-scale investment markets, about 40% of their advertising, of their net revenue on marketing and advertising, including sales promotion. And now it suddenly starts making sense, saying that you do tilt shifts in the way you spend and you grow faster.
Yeah. So you basically grow faster, make more money with less money.
Yeah.
And the reason why the impact is so substantial is that marketing has been so unanalyzed and fluffy for such a long time, and that the attempts to analyze has been they have come short. It's only analytical online clicks, or various attempts where it's kind of not complete and the regression model has been.
Yeah, and this is one. We spoke about the merger of the cultures. This is one example where the merger of the cultures is already happening because of this. Because when I met Christopher, he said, Harshil, so I don't have a background in data science, and he said, I'm not going to talk to you again till you don't go and study this and come back, and you don't pass these exams and you don't come back.
Nice.
So I'm forced to do that, and now I'm forced to teach Indian marketers data science.
Yeah.
To be able to get them on the same page to be able to sell. So already the cultural exchange is happening.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Actually, so both we and Harshil and the guys were together launching a series of videos called Data Science for CMOs. I could encourage you and everyone else listening to follow us, because those are going to be interesting. I think unfortunately, and this is why we do it, regression modeling doesn't come naturally to a CMO. They chose marketing often because they were more creative and or hated mathematics.
Yes.
So whereas if you talk to the CFOs, they're like, yeah, of course I understand regression modeling. So the cool thing for us is that if we lose on the CMO, we then knock on the door on the CFO. They go, yeah, of course I want this. It's the first model I've seen.
And I want the
makes sense.
CMO to use
No, but
it.
it's fun. It's fun. I mean, I'm in that category of people who used to be, and now after meeting Christopher, also in that category of you got to learn little more than 2% every year.
Yeah.
So you got to go and learn this, and it just opens up new parts of your brain, and it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, you and your team have studied seriously. They've done regression modeling with a tutor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've had your classes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, let's hope the learning continues, and we'll look forward to those videos too. In fact,
and we'll also have some classroom sessions as well.
Do you want to do like a shout out to where people can reach you, your LinkedIn, your Twitter, or where do you think folks who want to listen to this, who are listening to this, want to get in touch?
Yeah, so it's Christopher Engman with an English spelling, so CHPH, and Engman with an ENGMAN. So follow me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest one. I have a bit of a luxury problem. I have too many contacts, so I can't easily add contacts, but you can follow me. That's a bit of a...
Basically, his hot property.
Of course. No, but we are happy to have folks listening in to write to us, talk to us on our Slack channel, or of course write back to us wherever you're listening to this podcast, and we'd be happy to do the introductions. Thank you so much for this time, gentlemen. Let's hope, Christopher, you're back in Mumbai and, of course, India now with so much potential, of course, for Proof and even for all the cleantech opportunities, maybe. We should learn a bit on cutting down our pollution, in fact, I'm sure. And thank you, Harshil. Let's hope to catch up with you soon. And thank you for
so
this
much.
show.
It was our pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone listening in. Watch out for the details on where you can listen to this show, and keep sending us feedback. Of course, rate us on iTunes or wherever else you're listening to your podcasts. That always helps. Thank you.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे पॉडकास्ट लगते हैं. नाम है फुटबॉल शुटबॉल.
Presenting Football Shortball, a show about three friends discussing our favorite game over a beer. Sometimes 3, maybe even 5. Hi, I'm Shiva, and with me are my two sidekicks, Gaurav Sapre and Karthik Iyer.
Sidekick? You mean like Batman's Robin or Van Persie Robin?
No, I mean like Alexis Sanchez, but with a little more skill than just playing the piano.
Just shows how the best players at Arsenal are mere bench warmers at United.
Oh, thank you, Iyer. But you're a Fulham supporter, so whenever you say anything to support me, I question my beliefs.
Just like how Griezmann would say, एक बार मैंने जो decision ले लिया, तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Banter aside, we will talk match reports, transfer rumors, top controversies, fantasy football picks, and so much more. So grab a beer and tune in to Football Shortball every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tech Careers in the New podcast series presented by Accenture. And I'm your host, Shiladitya Mukhopadhyay. In this podcast series, we'll get you the latest and greatest in the world of technology that's shaping the future of business as we know it. We're talking intelligent platforms, cloud, AI, blockchain, extended reality, and a whole lot more. Every fortnight on Wednesdays, we'll have for you a hot topic with expert speakers from Accenture talking about top trends in the space. how these are changing the world and creating growth across industries. And more importantly, we'll tell you how you can learn more, build your skills and expertise to grow and stay relevant in your career. Episodes out on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcast from.